I never thought I'd become the person people whisper about in the office. I was 32 when I started working at a small bank branch in Lisbon. Quiet, neat, always in simple dresses with my hair tied in a low ponytail. Colleagues just called me Anna, and no one suspected that behind that modesty was someone who would one day decide to rewrite her life from scratch. I worked in the archive and old records department. Officially, my job was to digitize documents from clients who had closed their accounts before 2010. In reality, I sat in the basement among shelves of dusty boxes, and no one came down without a reason. Thousands of files gathered dust, their passport copies, old contracts, applications with signatures. Many clients had emigrated to Brazil or Canada, and some, as I discovered from obituaries in local newspapers and public death registries, had simply passed away. The scheme didn't come to me all at once. At first, I just noticed that the bank's system still kept full records of these people: passport numbers, addresses, even old mobile phones. There was no automatic check for whether the person was alive, only a manual note if someone specifically reported a client's death, and no one did. Relatives were far away or had long forgotten about an account in a Portuguese bank. The first step was the hardest. I chose an elderly man from the Algarve. Antonio Costa died in 2012. His widow had moved to Australia to be with their children. His file contained a passport copy and an old deposit agreement. I created a new email in his name through a free service. Antonio Costa, 1945. Malcolm registered a virtual Portuguese number via an app that forwarded SMS to my phone. Then I opened an account at the same bank but online, using his details, listing the address of an abandoned house in Faro that I found on Google Street View. The first loan was small, €12,000 for renovating a summer house. The application went to automated scoring. The system saw a client with history since 1998, positive past balances, no delinquencies. Approval came in 2 days. The money was transferred to the newly opened account. I withdrew it in small amounts from ATMs and repaid the loan a month later from another dummy account to avoid triggering security alerts. After that, I refined the process to perfection. I only selected people who had died 815 years earlier, long enough for relatives not to monitor, recent enough for the data to look current. I searched the civil registry. I had work access, old phone directories, even Facebook. Many deceased profiles remained active. For each client, I created a separate kit. New email on ProtonMail or Tutanota. Virtual number services like Hushed or Text Now. Dummy address, a real but abandoned or short-term rental property. Fake income statements generated from simple Photoshop templates. Signatures done by hand and scanned. I issued loans gradually. First a consumer loan for $10,000-20,000. 6 months later one for a car. A year after that a mortgage on a small provincial apartment. Amounts grew because the client had a positive credit history that I built myself. To avoid attention, I never had more than 3 active loans per person at once. All payments were made on time from one dummy account to another, money circulating within the system. The bank saw ideal borrowers who paid without delay. Over 4 years I had 7 such ghosts. The total amount of loans issued exceeded €2 million. Of that I pocketed about 17 million net. The rest went to interest payments and maintaining the illusion. I didn't splash money right away. First I paid off my own debts and bought my mother an apartment in Coimbra so she could finally leave her rental. Then I allowed myself small pleasures: a Carolina Herrera dress, a trip to Madeira, dinner at Belcanto with a city view. Over time I grew bolder: an apartment in the upscale Bairro Alto, a dark blue Porsche 911 that mostly stayed in the underground garage, Hermès and Chanel bags, weekends in Paris at the George V. I still came to the bank every morning, smiled at colleagues, drank coffee from the machine and went down to the archive. No one noticed the changes. Everything collapsed when a new head of security was sent from Madrid. He launched a project integrating the bank's database with the National Death Registry. A simple cross-check. Within a week the system flagged 312 clients with active loans who had died years ago. 7 of them were mine. They called me in on a Friday evening. I sat in my gray cardigan and watched him open the folder with my name. He didn't shout, he just said, "Anna, we know everything. Now I am awaiting trial. They took everything. My mother still thinks the money for her apartment came from a distant uncle's inheritance. I don't tell her the truth. Sometimes at night I wonder, was it worth it? 4 years of living without fear of poverty in exchange for everything else, and I still answer honestly, yes, it was worth it, if only to know what freedom tastes like. But now I am afraid again, only this time for real.